Welcome back to This Never Gets Old, where we have meaningful conversations about health, wellness, fitness, travel, and food, and how all of this can help today's seniors thrive. Today we're joined by Tia Delaney-Stewart, MSN, RN, PHN, and CCM, and Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Alzheimer's Association, California Southland chapter. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
So Tia, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you go to school, where you grew up, and how you got into nursing?
Oh, that's such a loaded question. So originally, my family and I are from the East Coast. We're from Boston, Massachusetts. And so somewhere along my young journey, my family migrated here. So my brother and sister were both born in Los Angeles. I went to school locally, so I am an Olympian. I went to Lusinger High School for any Olympians who are listening. And then from there, I actually went to college. I went to an HBCU, Prairie View A&M University, and nursing was not my career choice. I went to school for psychology, and then when I came home, I worked in home health. And working in home health for over a decade or so, I worked with a lot of nurses who cared for geriatric patients, our older population, and also children with developmental disabilities. Over the years, I worked my way up through the organization and actually became the chief operating officer. But somewhere along my journey, I just had this tugging feeling that I wanted to do more and actually be a clinician. I would talk to patients, visit patients. And so I just got a wild hair. I told my boss I was going to resign from my position. I went back to school and I got my ADN in nursing, and I went back to that same company and became their director of nursing. And then along my journey, as you read my credentials, I got my bachelor's, my master's, work in public health. And that really has been my nursing journey. I'm actually the first nurse in a long generation of folks in my family. And so that's really my career journey. And here I sit now as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Alzheimer's Association. And it's really one of the proudest roles that I've had, and the fact that what I do every single day to help lower dementia risk in the communities that have the higher risk for developing this disease, but also spreading education and awareness across the nation and getting folks involved in all facets of all things dementia.
How did you find out about the Alzheimer's Association? What put that on your radar, and how did you get to that point from nursing?
To be honest, I learned more about Alzheimer's and dementia on my own and not in nursing school. And what had happened was, as I was a home health nurse going into the homes in the LA community, especially our Black and Brown community homes, about 30% of the time, Richard, I would see folks. And so say you just got out of the hospital with a hip replacement, and I'm going to care for you, but you'd have your mom or your dad or your uncle there, and I'd see some memory loss or cognitive issues, and I would say, hey, does your dad have Alzheimer's or a form of dementia? And a lot of times they'd be like, oh no, that's just my dad. He's just old. This happens as you get older. And it was really alarming that I realized through that journey that a lot of people had no idea what Alzheimer's disease actually was, which meant they weren't prepared. And so I started learning more about it. And when I realized that diseases like high blood pressure and diabetes and high cholesterol were contributing factors, I took it upon myself to go into the community and begin teaching about this disease and the risk factors. And someone from the Alzheimer's Association saw me speaking, and they were like, hey, are you a volunteer? And I was like, no. And so I became a volunteer for a couple of years. And then when we had the murder of George Floyd was when a lot of organizations across the nation began to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the Alzheimer's Association did as well. They developed this department within the association, and I interviewed for the role of director, and here I sit. And so I was there as a volunteer for about 2 years, and in this current role, I'm almost 5 years.
I want to get back to that in a second. You mentioned, underserved communities are especially affected by diabetes and high blood pressure, and a lot of that is not access to nutritional foods. Here on This Never Gets Old, we'd like to focus on healthy nutrition, meals that can help fight diabetes and high blood pressure in underserved communities. So made that food for you. While you enjoy that, we're going to check out how I made it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that.
Hey, welcome back to the This Never Gets Old kitchen. where today we're going to make salmon poached in a homemade vegetable stock and served over a pea risotto with leeks, mint, and lemon. Let's get started. First, we're going to add about a quarter cup of olive oil to our pan. And then we're going to add the whites of one small leek chopped and just let that cook down. Once your leeks are soft and translucent, you're going to add a cup of Arborio rice. Stir to get all that oil coated on each grain and to mix with the leek, making sure not to burn the rice. And add half a cup of white wine. I wish you could smell this. Even at this point, the leeks and the wine smell amazing. Once the wine is absorbed, you're going to add a couple ladles of our vegetable stock and let that absorb. Remember to keep your stock warm. You don't want to cool off the process of the rice absorbing the liquid. So to make our vegetable stock, we're going to start out with 8 cups of water. We're going to add 2 celery stalks, roughly chopped, 1 large fennel bulb or 2 small fennel bulbs, roughly chopped, and the green leek tops from 1 large leek. The peel of 1 lemon and a sprig or 2 of thyme. You're going to cover that, let that simmer for a few hours until everything cooks down and all the flavors merge. Already at this point, you can see that the rice is releasing its starch and bubbling deliciously. Note that we haven't added any salt or seasoning at this point. This is pure delicious spring flavors. After the first 2 ladles of stock are absorbed, continue to add 2 ladles at a time. Stir your risotto. And let that rice absorb all that delicious flavor. Continue to add stock as needed until your rice is completely cooked and all the liquid is absorbed. So while the risotto is cooking, you're going to take your blender and add a couple peas, a loosely packed cup of spinach, 10 roughly chopped mint leaves, and the peel of half a lemon. Add a little bit of your vegetable stock to help mix. Once you've pureed the peas, the mint, and the lemon, add it to the risotto and stir it in. Okay, while your risotto is resting, you're going to take a couple fillets of salmon and you're going to poach them in the remainder of your stock. Once your stock is boiling, you're going to reduce it down to a simmer and you're going to add your 2 fillets of salmon. And depending on their thickness, you're going to poach them anywhere from 7 to 9 minutes. While your salmon continues to poach, make sure the heat is off your risotto and you're going to add a cup of freshly grated pecorino romano. There you have it, poached salmon on a bed of pea risotto with lemon, mint, and leeks. This kind of cooking never gets old. We'll see you next time.
This literally melts in your mouth. Oh my gosh, it's really good. I'm excited about learning this recipe. It's important to find new recipes and ways to make food just taste good, but also, you know, a hearty meal like this where it's healthy. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is wonderful. I may eat the whole thing.
Okay, Tia, We're back. Let me know what you think.
I found this to be absolutely amazing. And that means a lot coming from me. As I was saying, I really love a nice salmon. I am a vegetarian most days, eat fish twice a week, and salmon is my favorite fish. And
Oh,
this was
wow.
so
Great.
flavorful and moist. And the risotto, I mean, the flavors, knowing that salt wasn't really utilized a lot and you used a lot of herbs and cilantro to really flavor it, it's amazing.
Great.
I could
Great.
really eat this whole plate here on live.
That is so amazing. Makes me so happy. Makes me so happy. While you continue to enjoy that, let me ask you a few more questions. Let's get back to the subject. Understanding Alzheimer's. Most people have, unfortunately been touched by the Alzheimer's disease, either personally, someone in their family, a loved one, even a friend, a neighbor. But I'm not sure everybody understands what Alzheimer's really is. So maybe you can kind of go into the clinical explanation of what Alzheimer's is and how it affects the body.
Thank you for that question because it's so true. I realize that most folks think that dementia and Alzheimer's are actually synonymous terms, and they're not. And so when we talk about it in the community, the best thing to remember is that dementia is more like the umbrella term. Dementia is not an actual diagnosis, but it means that something is happening to someone cognitively, behaviorally, memory loss, functionally, and it's up to your clinical team to determine what is causing that dementia. And so there's over maybe 100 different reasons that someone could have dementia. So something as simple as medication toxicity can put someone in a confused state. You change the dosing of the medication and then that confusion disappears. And as we age, our metabolism slows down. So sometimes that can happen. When we think about Alzheimer's disease is an actual disease that causes one to have dementia. And so 60 to 80% of all dementias are related to Alzheimer's disease. Also related to vascular dementia, which is about 20 to 40% of all related dementias. And then a lot of folks have what we call mixed dementia, so some Alzheimer's, some vascular. And so why we want folks to know and to have a diagnosis is because just like cancer is an umbrella term, breast cancer and bone cancer look different and they need different types of treatments. And so when you have Alzheimer's disease versus vascular dementia, they may have different trajectories of how the disease is going to present itself. Even with frontotemporal dementia, we see that an earlier onset of behavioral rather than memory loss. And so it's really important to know that Alzheimer's disease is the diagnosis and dementia is not. And I really urge folks, if you're having issues with memory or confusion or function and behavior, to go to your doctor and find out what is causing it, and don't automatically think, oh, they seem demented, so they must have Alzheimer's disease.
And is it, I'm going to ask the question, is it more prominent in older adults, or can it run the spectrum of age groups?
So we do see that as you age, after age 65, every 5 years, you have a increased risk for developing Alzheimer's disease and other related dementias. But we do have early onset dementia, and we're seeing more of that early onset Alzheimer's disease in folks as early as 40, even younger. And so it's important to understand when you're seeing some of these signs of confusion or memory loss or functional changes, to go and get that assessment to determine what it is, because many times people think, oh, they're 40 or 45 and they can't possibly have Alzheimer's disease. But yes, we see it more in our older population and our seniors.
What are some of the signs that somebody should look out for a family member or even for yourself? A lot of elderly live by themselves, so what are the warning signs?
So we have something at the Alzheimer's Association, and it's called the 10 warning signs. And these are evidence-based warning signs that we tell folks to look out for. And so if you are experiencing one or two of these warning signs, we ask you to go to your physician and just get assessed. And so one is memory loss, but memory loss that's affecting your daily lifestyle. So it's not like, where did I put my glasses or where did I lay my phone? It's more so forgetting where you laid your phone, and maybe even putting your phone under the bathroom sink or in the refrigerator, because at that time you're forgetting even what your phone is for. And so I tell folks, if you have the ability to recall, remember, and retrace, right? We all are busy. We come in, there's people asking us questions, or we're thinking of something we have to do, and we sit our glasses down. And maybe you go upstairs to do something else and you go, oh, where are my glasses? But then you pause and you go, oh, when I came in, I went in the kitchen. Oh, that's right. And I can recall what I did. And you go downstairs and there are your glasses. That that is not the same type of memory loss. Another warning sign that you may see in others is the withdrawal from doing things they normally love to do. So maybe not going to family functions, not engaging in workplace meetings, not being as talkative as they were. And that is because people are seeing that they're forgetting names. They're seeing they're forgetting words, and they're fumbling through expressing themselves. And so they begin to pull back because, believe you me, if you're seeing signs in a loved one, they're probably seeing the signs earlier in themselves. You may also see that people are forgetting to do normal day-to-day tasks. And so we may see folks not paying their bills on time because they just forget it's the first of the month and I need to pay my bills. I say in families, what we will notice is, say, your grandmother or your aunt doesn't make that same apple pie, or my sister making her macaroni and cheese, because they may start forgetting how to do the recipe. And so I always know if my sister ever says she's not making mac and cheese for Thanksgiving or Christmas, something is wrong, because she don't want nobody else to get them accolades, right? And so, but maybe your loved one is forgetting how to make that recipe, and so they begin to pull back. And then you may see mood changes because, again, people are frightened and they're fearful of what is happening with them. They've gotten lost going home or coming home from the grocery store. So again, that can be frightening, and you may see some behavioral and some mood changes.
Interesting. We'll put that on the screen. We'll put all of those 10 warning signs on screen. We'll put the links in the comments.
Thank you for that. And they can go to our website and look up 10 warning signs, and that's available there as well.
And you mentioned going to see your clinician or your medical team. Do you see that, and again, in the focus that it's a disease that affects maybe older adults more prominently, do you see that Medicare plans cover that? Is it covered by all Medicare plans?
That's a great question, because a lot of people don't realize that an annual wellness exam is covered by Medicare. And in the state of California, if you have Medicaid and some of our safety net programs, an annual wellness exam is covered as well. And during that wellness exam, they can do a memory exam or a cognitive exam. And so I encourage people to ask, hey, have you done my cognitive exam? Even if you're not seeing any symptoms, because just like your blood pressure and your blood sugar and your cholesterol, you need a baseline, right? So get a cognitive exam annually. And that way, 5-6 years as you are aging, then you'll be able to do that comparison, and your physicians will be as well. So yes, Medicare and some of our Medicaid and safety net programs do cover it.
We talked earlier about the food that you enjoyed. We also like to do an exercise tip of the week for seniors. So let's cut to that and let's check that out.
All right. I'm going to finish this food here.
As we mature, balance becomes a very important issue. We're going to work on balance today, shifting all your weight onto one leg, claw the ground with your foot, bringing the other leg up and holding. Try for a 5-second hold. If you fall out, no problem. Just go right back into it and hold. You'll do this with the other foot also, and then you're going to do it with your eyes closed, because vision is a very important part of balance. So shifting your weight, get that leg up, close your eyes and hold.
Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to This Never Gets Old. Again, we're here with Tia Delaney-Stewart from the Alzheimer's Association, Southern California chapter. Tia, we just came back from seeing an exercise tip of the week. Is there a relationship? Does exercise help in prevention or slowing down the disease?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I absolutely love that you guys have the exercise tips of the week. And so, yes, we have something called 10 healthy habits for your brain. And these are evidence-based lifestyle changes that you can make. And definitely getting moving and exercising is one of them. We know that our heart health is directly correlated to our brain health. And so when you exercise, your heart rate increases, the flow of blood to our brain increases, and that nutrient oxygenated blood going to the brain can help lower your overall dementia risk. And so even if it's passive engagement like Tai Chi or yoga, you don't have to get up and run a marathon, but moving a little bit every day, even if it's just 30 minutes of slow walking, definitely can help lower your overall dementia risk.
I know you work closely with older adults every day. What has that taught you about diversity within the senior community across race, age, gender, socioeconomic backgrounds? How is the Alzheimer's Association working to address some of the disparities?
They are doing a lot of great work in that space, and I'm really proud to sit as a director of DEI for the Alzheimer's Association. And so one of the things we do is make sure that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are woven into all that we do. And so it's not like a separate entity that sits over here. It's through our programming, it's through our fundraising efforts, it's through our advocacy, through our research. All of it is done through the lens of inclusion. And we have a lot of work to do because we know we still see the disparities. So Black African Americans are twice more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease than their white counterparts. And our Hispanic Latino population are 1.5 times more likely. So there's a lot of work still to be done, and it's connected to the social and political determinants of health. And so it's about education and awareness, which we do well at the Alzheimer's Association. But we have to remember that only 20% of your health outcomes are really related to that clinical experience. And the other 80% of our overall health outcomes are connected to community, to your zip code, to your socioeconomic status, right, to stress, to systemic racism. And so at the association, working in spaces of advocacy matter, looking at those policies and regulations that are in place that are creating the barriers, working with local legislation to understand what those 10 healthy habits look like, right? So if we're talking about nutrition, are there places where you can access healthy foods? If we're talking about cognitive stimulation, are there senior centers and youth centers in the community? And then also thinking about research. We know that engaging in research is extremely important because quite honestly, everything we know about Alzheimer's disease is really based on research done with educated white men. Women weren't even allowed to be in research until the 1990s. And so we have created spaces to improve diversity in research. And on a national level, we work across the board with tons of organizations that serve diverse communities, sororities, fraternities, SAGE, which is advocacy for our LGBTQ partners and community, the National Black Nursing Association and National Association of Hispanic Nurses. And so we do a lot of work with a lot of our national partners because we know we need those trusted voices to help deliver the messaging.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, diversity in research is extremely important. I'm glad that you guys are tackling that. Yeah. So if someone has the symptoms or they think they have the symptoms, or you have a loved one, where do they begin to look for the resources to get help?
Yeah, and that's such a loaded question because a lot of times we're seeing in communities still that people feel there's not a cure for Alzheimer's disease. So why get any support or help? And I'm here to say that although there's not a cure, there are treatments now that are actually slowing the progression of the disease. But you want to help your loved one have a dignified dementia journey, and so you need to know what their diagnosis is so you can support them. So we always say start with your clinical team, going to the physician and getting a diagnosis. As I mentioned earlier, confusion, memory loss does not necessarily mean you have Alzheimer's disease. So starting there. And at the Alzheimer's Association, through our 800 number or even online, we have checklists and information, what questions to ask your physician, resources that you're going to need, how to do that planning, what are those next steps? Because some folks don't know the difference between a neurologist and gerontologist, right? And so all of that information is available to help support you as the person dealing with those early signs or caregivers as they're helping support a loved one through that journey.
An Alzheimer's diagnosis can feel overwhelming and frightening. What is the Alzheimer's Association doing to help families feel supported and not so alone?
Yeah, that's important because it's scary. I think of all the diseases as a clinician that I'm aware of, Alzheimer's disease to most folks is one of the most frightening because you're actually going to forget not only your loved ones, but who you are and where you are. And what's more frightening to be sitting in a space and not knowing where you are and who the people are around you. And so one thing we do is help people develop support groups so that people know that they're not alone and that there are resources out there and that there are people that are going through this along the same journey alongside them. We also have tons of educational materials on our website. So how to take away those car keys, how to manage behaviors, right? Because dealing with someone that is becoming more and more confused and maybe agitated and aggressive can be very scary. But if you learn how to manage those behaviors and how to better engage with your loved one, that brings you joy, right? Because I know now that I'm talking to my grandmother in a way that's most effective for her to understand and for her to feel safe. And I think that brings hope. I think the other conversation we have a lot is talking about stigmas. And I often say to people that stigma and fear do not provide a cure, right? So we have to think about diagnoses and we have to think about early detection. And I think we do a lot in those spaces of saying, we know there's not a cure, but there's a lot of things we can do to slow the progression. And there's a lot of things we can do to help people get that diagnosis.
I'm so happy to hear that the Alzheimer's Association is not only about the clinical part of a person, that they also focus on joy, as you mentioned. You know, one of the things that we'd like to do here on This Never Gets Old is highlight a senior that is breaking the molds of what it means to be a senior today. It's time to meet this week's Senior of the Week, Manette McDermott, owner of Moonchi, an organic homemade plant-based food shop. She's on a mission to change lives one gut at a time.
I love that.
Let's check her out.
All righty.
When she came to life because I was passionate about helping people get well. One of the things that I do that is a very, very big part of my heart is I am a health and wellness coach. And when I first started doing this, I was just consulting people about their different health issues, but also their different wellness issues. Like, how do they feel when they are happy? How do they feel when they're sad? So kind of like a life coach. And what I was finding was that every time I helped them with their gut, they started to feel better. And I thought, that's really cool. So Moonchi comes from the name chi, and the chi is your life force energy, right? So you've got this beautiful flow going through your body. And then you also have the moon. The moon is the cycle of nature. And we're always in a 28-day cycle of the moon. And as we get in line with the moon cycle, our body becomes more connected to nature. When you're in line with nature, your chi is balanced. So we put the U in the place of the O's in moon, and we're allowing you to go back in nature. But we also thought it was kind of fun because it kind of looks like the word munchie. We started off in the farmers markets. So Moonchi was originally in 4 different farmers markets. And I got a real good sense of the demographic. We were the people that really were benefiting from this. And the elders, the wise ones, were always the most curious. And I brought all these books to the stand, and they would be standing there reading the books and asking questions and really wanting to absorb a lot of the information. And at the time, we weren't talking about the microbiome. We weren't talking about the gut. And I was the only one in this farmer's market doing that. So there was always a crowd. And many of them were the wise ones because they wanted to keep learning. We make all of our fermentations by hand. So every fermentation takes a different amount of time. That's what's very tricky. So when you're running a company that's all about fermentation, you have to think, okay, when did I start that one? When did I start that one? Oh, that one's going to be done in 3 days. The other one's going to be done in a week. And the other one's going to be done in 24 hours. Every product is going to be a little bit different. I love people to come and visit, even if they don't know what we do. I love the curious ones that come in and go, what is this? Is this a place that I eat? Is this a place that I talk to somebody? I don't understand what this place is. I love that. So what we do is we allow people to learn from the experience of being in the store. It's all word of mouth. We do have an Instagram, but it is run by a fellow who's on Medicare. So we're not the most savvy when it comes to the Instagram, but you can learn what events. So we do post all of our events. If we're not open, if we're closed, we do post that, which is cool. And everyone, all of our wise ones are using Instagram too. So it's not just our young ones. And then what I love people to know about mushi is that because the microbes are so critical to our connection to nature, you're going to see that we try to get all of the products to not be creating waste. Instead, we're going to try to get all of the microbes that are growing in our original cocoa beer, which took a year to grow because it only grows in milk. But we don't do any milk. We don't do any dairy. So the product to be made with the growing microbes is in organic coconut milk. Now, she generates the next product, which is going to be our aged cheese, but then that generates a liquid that now is generating our kvass. And then the kvass helps us generate the bichi and the next sauerkraut, and then they help us make the hummuses. So everything has an opportunity to continue in nature, just as nature does. There's always going to be a sense of regeneration. We're not going to waste anything. And that feeling of, if you can heal yourself using real food, you will never lose your connection with why you're here. You're here to contribute as well as the plants are here to contribute, right? So that feeling of having a purpose is really important to all of our products. Every single product is going to be about, why am I here?
Welcome back to This Never Gets Old. We're here with Tia Delaney-Stewart of the Alzheimer's Association, California Southland chapter. Let's get back into it. Myths and truths. What's one common myth about Alzheimer's that you'd like to debunk?
That memory loss is not a normal part of aging. I'll repeat it. Memory loss is not a normal part of aging. I think people think as we get older, our memories get less sharp, and so we become confused and have these great inabilities, that happen upon us, and that is not true. Yeah, you may get a little more forgetful, right? I'm a little more forgetful just because my brain is so busy, but it's not normal for people to begin repeating themselves over and over again. It's not normal for your husband to go to the grocery store that he's been to 100 times and forget how to get home. And so you must understand that if someone is suffering through memory loss or behavioral changes of that type, that they must go and get a diagnosis and see what's going on with them. And to realize that memory loss does not automatically equate to Alzheimer's disease or dementia.
Is there a truth that you'd like to, that you'd hope more people would understand about Alzheimer's disease?
I guess one of the truths is related around stigma. The truth is that there are treatments out there that can help slow the progression. And so the stigma around not getting a diagnosis actually is minimizing a lot of underserved and communities of color from having access to that treatment, because these treatments are actually only work and are only effective in the early stages. And so, yes, these treatments are very real. They're actually evidence and FDA approved, but to slow the progression of the disease, but only in the early stages. So removing the stigma of getting a diagnosis, going out there, getting assessed, getting diagnosed early so that you have access to these treatments. And hopefully, ultimately, one day, Richard, a cure.
Tia, thank you so much for sharing and being on the show. You ready to have a little fun?
I am. This has been fun so far, though. Thank you.
So we like to play a little this or that with our guests.
Okay.
We change it up every time. Lauren comes up with our producer comes up with all the questions.
Okay.
So I don't really get to see them until right now. So I may be laughing right along with you. Okay. So sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Winter or summer?
Oh, definitely summer.
Would you visit the past or would you visit the future?
That is challenging for me, but I'm going to say the future, so let the past be the past.
Early bird or night owl?
I'm an early bird.
Iced or hot coffee?
Oh, hot coffee. I know nothing iced about my coffee.
Would you rather have Mondays or Fridays off?
Monday through Friday off. But I will say Monday because you get a lot of stuff done when you're off on Monday because most people are at work.
Rain or snow?
Rain. It's less chilly.
Jeans or leggings?
I'm going to say leggings. They're far more comfy.
Would you rather pause time or rewind time?
For reasons that people who know me know, I would say rewind time if I could.
Tia, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your expertise and knowledge and perspective. If people want to find out more about the Alzheimer's Association and what you do or contact you directly, how can they do that?
Thank you for that. And so we have a toll-free helpline that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can call 3 o'clock in the morning for information. That's 1-800-272-3900, 800-272-3900. We also have our website, which is a plethora of information from resources and education to advocacy to research opportunities, and that's ALZ as in zebra.org. So those are the two ways. I am located in the California Southland chapter, so you can call that 800 number to reach me. And then, of course, I'll share my email and information with you, which you can put on the screen.
Tia, thank you so much for being on This Never Gets Old. Everybody, we'll see you again next week.
Thank you for having me, Richard. I enjoyed myself.